We all have routines. I'm Jabron, and with diabetes, mine was finger sticks. Sometimes, I skip them because it hurt. The Freestyle Libre 3C GM changed that. It gives me glucose insights without finger sticks. Learn more at freestylelibre.us.
Finger sticks are required if your glucose alarms or readings do not match symptoms, or when you see check blood glucose symbol for the first 12 hours. The views expressed should not be used for medical diagnosis or treatment as a substitute for professional medical advice. Individual circumstances may vary. For prescription only. Safety info found at freestylelibre.us.
Welcome to Deep Sleep Stories. Tonight you are invited to drift into a cozy night in an Italian vineyard, where the hills are soft beneath the moon. The vines rest in silver light, and every quiet sound seems to carry you closer to sleep. Settle now, wherever you are. Let your body find the shape of comfort. Feel the surface beneath you holding you gently, steadily, as though the whole earth has risen up to support your rest. Let your shoulders loosen. Let your jaw soften. Let your hands grow still. There is nothing you need to carry into this story except your breath. And even that may come and go in its own quiet rhythm. Breathe in slowly, as if drawing in the cool night air of the countryside. Breathe out as if releasing the last small worries of the day into the dark, where they can dissolve like mist above the fields. Imagine, just beyond the edge of waking thought, a warm stone path winding through an Italian vineyard at dusk. The day has faded into amber. The sky is deepening to violet. Somewhere far away, a church bell has rung its final note, and the sound has softened into the hills. The vines stretch in patient rows across the slopes, their leaves dark and fragrant, their grapes heavy with sweetness. A little farmhouse glows at the center of it all, with shutters painted the color of sage, a roof of old terracotta tiles, and a lamp burning in the window like a small, faithful star. With each breath, you may feel yourself arriving there. The air is mild. It carries the scent of sun-warmed earth, rosemary growing beside a low wall, and the faint, mellow perfume of grapes ripening under moonlight. Crickets begin their gentle evening song. Olive trees stand nearby. Silver leaves turn toward the sky, barely stirring. Everything is quiet, unhurried, and kind. And as you rest, the story may begin to move a little farther from you, so that you do not need to follow it too closely. You may simply let it drift past like a lantern floating on a calm, dark river. There was once a traveler who came to the vineyard at the edge of evening. She had walked through the small village in the valley as the last shopkeepers closed their doors, and the baker swept flour from his threshold, and a woman on a balcony shook out a linen cloth that caught the golden light before folding into shadow. The traveler carried only a small bag, a folded shawl, and the pleasant tiredness that comes after a day spent moving slowly through beautiful places. The road from the village wound upward between stone walls. Wild thyme grew in the cracks. Tiny flowers, pale and soft, leaned toward the lingering warmth of the stones. To the west, the sun slipped behind a line of cypress trees, and for a while each tree became a dark, narrow flame against the glowing sky. At the top of the hill stood the vineyard house, It was not grand, and yet it seemed complete, as if every tile, every wooden beam, every clay pot of basil by the door had found exactly where it belonged. A dog with sleepy eyes lifted his head from the doorstep and gave his tail a slow, friendly thump. A cat, gray as smoke, watched from the low wall with serene indifference, then blinked as though granting permission for the evening to continue. The woman who tended the vineyard came out to greet the traveler. She was called Lucia, and she moved with the quiet ease of someone who knew the land not by map or measurement, but by seasons, scents, and the subtle moods of light. Her hair was gathered loosely at the nape of her neck. Her apron was dusted with flour. She carried a small lantern, though the sky still held enough brightness to see. "Welcome," Lucia said, and her voice was warm without being loud. "You have arrived at the hour when the vineyard begins to dream." The traveler smiled, feeling the day loosen from her piece by piece. Lucia led her through the courtyard. There was a wooden table beneath a pergola, woven with vine leaves. A bowl of figs sat in the center, their skins deep purple and green, each one soft with ripeness. Nearby, a fountain murmured from a lion's mouth into a shallow basin where rose petals floated on the water. The sound was small and steady, no more than a hush, but it seemed to gather all the peace of the place into itself. Inside, the farmhouse was cool. Its walls were thick, holding the memory of many summers. Copper pans hung above the hearth. A blue ceramic pitcher stood on the table. Bundles of lavender and bay leaves dried from the ceiling beams, releasing their fragrance into the room whenever the air shifted. On one shelf, jars of honey glowed amber in the lamplight. On another, bottles of olive oil held a green-gold gleam, as if sunlight had been poured and stored for winter. Lucia showed the traveler to a small room at the back of the house. The window looked out over the vineyard, where the rows of vines descended in graceful curves toward the valley. The bed was made with white linen, soft from washing and sun. A wool blanket, light but warm, lay folded at the foot. On the bedside table was a little sprig of rosemary tied with thread. "Rest a while," Lucia said. "Later, if you like, we will walk among the vines. Night is gentle here." The traveler set down her bag and stood for a moment by the window. The last edge of sun had gone. The sky was now the color of ripe plums, fading slowly into blue. The first evening star appeared above the hills. It shone without effort, and somehow, because it was there, the whole world seemed to breathe more slowly. She washed her hands in a small basin, the water cool and clean. She unpinned her hair. She wrapped her shawl around her shoulders and returned to the courtyard, where Lucia had placed bread, cheese, figs, and a little dish of olives on the table beneath the pergola. They ate quietly. The bread was crusty and warm, with a soft center that held the scent of grain. The cheese was mild, with a taste of grass and open fields. The figs were sweet, in the way of late summer, tasting of honey, rain, and sun. The olives were smooth and rich. And when the traveler sipped water from a ceramic cup, It seemed colder and fresher than any water she had tasted before. Lucia did not hurry the meal with conversation. She spoke now and then of simple things, the harvest that would begin soon, the fox that sometimes passed along the northern wall, the old pear tree that bloomed too early each spring but somehow always bore fruit. Her words rose and settled like leaves. As darkness gathered, the vineyard changed. What had been green became deep and shadowed. The earth between the rows turned soft and nearly black. The grapes, hanging in clusters, held the last faint traces of the day, a quiet sheen beneath the leaves. Fireflies appeared above the grass, blinking on and off with no pattern that could be followed, only received. They moved like thoughts becoming dreams. When the plates were cleared, Lucia took up the lantern again. "Come," she said, "the vines are waiting." The traveler followed her through a small gate and onto a path between the rows. The ground was dry and fine beneath her sandals. Now and then, a stone shifted softly underfoot. The vines stood on either side, twisted trunks old and strong, leaves layered overhead in patches, grapes tucked beneath them like sleeping children. The lantern cast a warm circle around their steps. Beyond it, moonlight spread gently across the vineyard, washing everything in silver. The moon had risen over the far ridge, round and calm, and where its light touched the leaves, they seemed to glow along their edges. Lucia walked slowly, sometimes brushing a hand over a vine as she passed. "This one," she said softly, "was planted by my grandfather, and this one by my mother. They all have their own way of growing. Some reach, some twist, some endure, but every year they offer what they can." The traveler listened. She did not need to answer. The night seemed full of small, comforting sounds. Crickets sang from the grass. A night bird called once from the olive grove, then was silent. Somewhere in the distance, water moved in an irrigation channel, soft and hidden. The dog had followed them for a little while, but now he lay at the end of a row, chin on paws, watching with drowsy loyalty. They came to a rise in the vineyard where the land opened. Below them, the valley rested beneath a veil of moonlight. The village was a cluster of dim gold windows. Beyond it, fields and groves stretched toward other hills, and those hills faded into deeper blue until it was impossible to know where land ended and sky began. The air was fragrant with basil, dust, leaves, and the faint sweetness of fruit. A wooden bench stood there beneath an almond tree. Lucia placed the lantern on the ground, and they sat. For a long while, neither spoke. The traveler felt the quiet enter her, not as emptiness, but as a fullness too gentle to be named. She felt it in her hands, her throat, her chest. The peace of the place did not ask anything from her. It simply made room. After a time, Lucia began to tell a story about the vineyard. It was an old story, she said, told by her grandmother, who had heard it from her grandmother before her. Long ago, when the hills were wilder and the roads were only pale tracks in the grass, there lived a moonkeeper who walked the vineyards at night. She wore a cloak, the color of lavender shadows, and she carried a silver cup. When the vines were thirsty, she gathered dew from the edges of the stars and poured it onto their roots. When the grapes were young, she whispered to them of patience. When the harvest came, she touched each cluster with one cool finger, so the fruit would remember the sweetness of the night as well as the warmth of the sun. No one ever saw the moonkeeper clearly. A farmer might glimpse a pale figure passing between the rows just before dawn. A child might find silver droplets on the leaves after a dry night. A tired worker might feel a hand, light as mist, resting for a moment on his shoulder, and wake the next day with an easier heart. The traveler smiled in the dark. "Do you believe she still comes?" she asked. Lucia looked out across the vineyard, where moonlight lay like a blessing on the leaves. "I believe," she said, "that every place cared for with love keeps something gentle alive." The words settled into the night. They sat until the moon climbed higher and the lantern flame grew small. Then Lucia rose and they continued along the path. The vineyard seemed endless now, though it was not. At night, familiar places become spacious. A single row of vines can feel like a quiet road through a dream. A stone wall can seem ancient enough to remember every footstep that ever passed beside it. They walked toward the olive grove. Here the air was cooler. The olive trees twisted upward in shapes both graceful and strange, their trunks hollowed and knotted by time. Their leaves flashed silver when the breeze touched them. Beneath one tree stood a small shrine built into the wall with a painted tile of a saint, a candle in a red glass holder, and a few dried flowers tucked into a crack in the stone. Lucia paused and lit the candle. Its flame trembled, then steadied. The traveler watched how the little light warmed the saint's painted face, the rough stone, the flowers, Lucia's hand. Nothing about it was hurried. Nothing tried to be more than it was. The candle simply burned. The night simply held it. From the grove they followed a narrower path to a little shed where the vineyard tools were kept. The door stood open to the warm smell of wood, rope, baskets, and dry leaves. On a hook hung a wide-brimmed straw hat. Against the wall leaned pruning shears polished from years of use. Empty harvest crates were stacked in neat towers, waiting for the coming days when the vineyard would fill with voices, footsteps, and laughter. But tonight, there was only stillness. Lucia took 2 woven baskets from the shed, though they were not going to harvest. She said there was something she liked to do on the first clear night before the moon began to wane. She led the traveler to a row near the old well where the grapes grew especially sweet, and there she selected a few fallen leaves from the path, each one shaped like a hand. Each one touched at the edges with bronze. She placed them in one basket. In the other she put a smooth stone, a small feather, and a sprig of lavender from beside the wall. "These are only small things," she said. "But small things help the house remember the season." The traveler chose a leaf for herself, deep green with a vein of gold, and Lucia nodded, as though this was just right. They returned to the courtyard by a different path. The farmhouse looked especially welcoming now. Its windows glowed softly. The fountain continued its gentle murmur. The gray cat had moved from the wall to a chair beneath the pergola and was curled there in a round shape, tail tucked over paws. The dog was asleep on the doorstep, dreaming perhaps of warm fields and friendly hands. Lucia set the baskets on the table. She brought out a little pot of herbal tea made from chamomile, lemon balm, and a thread of orange peel. Steam rose in pale curls. The traveler held the cup between her hands, feeling its warmth move into her fingers. The tea tasted soft and golden, like a meadow remembered from childhood. Above the courtyard, the sky had deepened to a vast, clear blue. Stars gathered in patient clusters. The moonlight lay over the terracotta roof and along the rim of the fountain. In the distance, the village was almost asleep. Only one window still shone in the bell tower square, and even that went dark while they watched. Lucia began to hum. It was an old melody, wordless and low. It seemed less like a song than a breath the house already knew. The notes moved slowly, rising and falling like hills. The traveler leaned back in her chair and let the sound pass around her. She felt the warmth of the tea, the coolness of the air on her face, the texture of the wooden chair beneath her, the faint ache in her legs from walking, the softness of the shawl at her shoulders. Nothing needed to change. The night was complete. After the tea, Lucia banked the fire in the kitchen hearth. Though the evening was mild, she placed the vineyard leaves in a shallow bowl near the window, beside the stone, the feather, and the lavender. Then she gave the traveler a small candle in a brass holder. "For your room," she said. "Only for as long as you need it." The traveler thanked her and went down the hall. Her room was dim and peaceful. Through the open window came the sound of the fountain, and beyond it, the hush of the vineyard. Moonlight lay across the floor. In a long, pale rectangle, the bed waited, white and quiet. The rosemary sprig on the table had released its scent into the room, green and clean. She set the candle down and changed into her night clothes. Then she returned to the window and looked out. The vineyard did not sleep as people sleep. It rested more deeply, with roots reaching into the cool earth, with leaves open to the sky, with fruit slowly filling itself with sweetness. The traveler imagined each vine breathing in the moonlight, slow and silent. She imagined the dew beginning to gather, one clear bead at a time, along the edges of leaves. She imagined the moonkeeper moving somewhere between the rows, unseen and kind, carrying her silver cup. A soft breeze entered the room and touched the candle flame. It bowed, recovered, and glowed on. The traveler lay down. The linen was cool at first, then warmed beneath her. The pillow held the faint scent of soap and sun. She drew the blanket lightly over herself and listened. There was the fountain, there were the crickets, there was the occasional sigh of leaves. A shutter somewhere tapped once softly, then was still. Her Her thoughts, which had been scattered over the day, began to gather and loosen, until they no longer formed anything that needed attention. She thought of the village, the road, the cypress trees, Lucia's lantern, the grapes beneath the leaves. She thought of the old story and of silver dew poured gently at the roots of sleeping vines. Outside, the moon moved higher. The courtyard cooled. The cat opened one eye, saw that all was well, and closed it again. In the kitchen, the last ember in the hearth glowed red beneath a veil of ash. The bowls and cups were washed and turned upside down to dry. The basil at the door stirred in its pot. The dog dreamed on the threshold, one paw twitching as if he walked a path made only of warm dust and moonlight. Lucia, too, prepared for sleep. She moved through the house with quiet steps, checking the latch, lowering the lamp, touching the back of a chair into place. She paused by the window, where the leaves lay in their bowl, and breathed in the scent of lavender. Then she looked out toward the vineyard, smiling faintly as though wishing it good night. In the traveler's room, sleep came nearer. It did not arrive all at once. It drifted in layers. First, it softened the edges of the room. The candle flame became a golden blur. The window became a pale square of night. The moonlit floor seemed farther away. Then sleep softened the sounds. The fountain became part of the silence. The crickets became a net of gentle rhythm. The leaves outside became whispers with no words. Then sleep softened the body. The traveler's hands grew warm and heavy. Her feet settled. Her breathing lengthened. The small spaces around her eyes relaxed. Her heart, steady and quiet, seemed to follow the slow pulse of the hillside itself. And as she drifted, she dreamed that she was walking once more through the vineyard. But now the path was softer than earth. It seemed made of moonlight and dust. The vines rose taller, arching overhead, forming a leafy corridor through which the stars could be seen in glimmers. Grapes hung like dark little moons, each one holding a reflection of the sky. Ahead of her moved a figure in a lavender shadow cloak. The moonkeeper? She did not turn, and yet the traveler knew there was welcome in her presence. The moonkeeper walked slowly, carrying her silver cup. At each vine she paused. A drop of light fell from the cup to the roots. Wherever it touched the ground, the earth exhaled a fragrance of rain. The traveler followed without effort. There was no need to catch up, no need to speak. The dream moved at the pace of rest. They came to the almond tree on the rise, and beneath it stood the wooden bench. The valley below was filled not with houses and roads, but with a soft silver mist. Above the mist floated the sound of Lucia's wordless song, far away and near at once. The moonkeeper placed the cup on the bench. Then she lifted one hand toward the sky, and the stars seemed to lean closer, not falling, not moving quickly, but simply becoming more present, as if they too had been listening to the vineyard all along. The traveler sat beneath the almond tree. The moonkeeper gathered dew from the leaves and placed it in the traveler's palms. It was cool and weightless. It carried the scent of grapes, herbs, stone, and night-blooming flowers. When the traveler looked down, the dew had become tiny points of light, and when she breathed, they rose gently like fireflies and drifted away into the rose. With them went the last remnants of anything heavy. The dream became quieter. The moonkeeper's cloak blended with the shadows. The vines returned to their familiar height. The bench became only a bench. The mist in the valley thinned. The stars resumed their distant calm, and the traveler slept. The vineyard kept watch. All through the night the hills held their shape beneath the moon. The olive trees stood patiently, their leaves silvering and darkening with each breath of wind. The fountain whispered in the courtyard. Dew formed along the vine leaves and on the grass by the stone wall. The farmhouse rested with its shutters closed, its rooms filled with darkness, its roof cooling under the stars. No one hurried the night. No one asked it to become morning. It simply unfolded, petal by petal, hour by hour, in deep and tender silence. Somewhere before dawn, the moon passed over the roof and slipped toward the western hills. The stars grew softer. A faint blue entered the edge of the sky. Birds had not yet begun to sing. The world remained in that hushed place between night and morning, where even dreams seemed to breathe more gently. The traveler slept on. Her face was peaceful. Her hand rested open on the blanket. The little candle had long since gone out, leaving a thread of cooled wax along the brass holder. The rosemary sprig was still beside the bed. Through the open window came the cool, sweet scent of the vineyard before sunrise. And now the story grows softer. The path through the vines fades into shadow. The farmhouse settles more deeply into the hill. Lucia sleeps. The dog sleeps. The gray cat sleeps in a warm curl beneath the pergola. The grapes hang quietly beneath their leaves, full of moonlight, full of patience, full of the slow sweetness that comes from being rooted in the dark. There is nothing more to do, nothing more to hold. Only rest, only the gentle breath coming in and the gentle breath going out. The night is safe. The vineyard is calm. The hills are wide and kind. Let the image drift now. Let it become softer, farther away. A lantern fading down a stone path. A window glowing briefly, then dimming. A fountain murmuring to itself beneath the stars. And you may rest too. Deeper now. Quieter now. Held by the earth. Covered by the night. Good night, dear traveler. Sleep well.